Hi, everybody. All right, we're just going to give it a few minutes while everyone joins, and then I will turn things over to the absolutely wonderful Jeff and Kanella.
Kathleen, hi, Rick.
Some familiar faces out there. I love it.
Yeah, Kathleen from Cause Creations. Kathleen, hi, darling.
I was going to say, if you are familiar with how Zoom works, feel free to go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining from. I am joining from Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver. And it is a wonderful sunny day against all odds. We've had a whole week of rain, but now apparently we're getting some beautiful sun.
You guys all know where I'm from. In Ontario, and we just had a snowstorm and everything's closed, schools and everything.
Oh, wow, we've got some Quennell and Prince George. If you have no sound, you might need to try going into your audio settings and either turning up your volume or clicking the connect to computer audio.
Africa.
I'm joining from South Africa. So lovely to have you here. All right, I will keep letting people in, so don't worry about that, but I am also just going to get things started in the interest of time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Go with the Flow, Pouring with Amsterdam Acrylics with Jeff and Kanella. Before I turn things over to them, I'll give you a quick little overview of what you can expect from an OPUS Zoom demo. So first of all, you are going to get a follow-up email once the demo is done. That is going to include all of the materials that Jeff and Kanella are using today, as well as links to their social media. You're also going to get a code that you can use for 10% off your order. You can use that either online or in person. I'm going to be putting that in the demo, but again, or in the demo chat as well. So if you want to do a bit of shopping now, go ahead. But also, it'll be in the follow-up email. So if you're not grabbing it now, no need to worry. You can always get it later. Um, Really quickly, just going to go over some basic Zoom settings for you, just so everyone knows what is happening. So you can find those if you're on a tablet by tapping the screen, if you're on a computer just by wiggling the mouse, and a whole bunch of settings are going to pop up at the bottom. The first to the left is going to be audio. Now, everyone is going to be muted just to cut down on background noise. I'm also going to be muting if I'm not actively talking because I am joining from an office. People have conversations around my desk, and again, helps cut down on background noise. The second option you're going to see is video. Feel free to turn your cameras on if you want. We can have up to 25 cameras going at any time. So if you're finding that you're not able to connect, it's probably because we've hit that 25 person cap. Don't worry, you can always try again another time. Now, the most important function is going to be the chat, which is going to look like a bubble with a spout coming off of it, like a little text message notification. You can go ahead and click on that, type any questions you have into the chat, and I will be reading that as the demo goes along, and I'll pass them over to Jeff and Kanella. All right, with that out of the way, I am going to turn things over. Jeff, do you want to go first, or is Kanella, do you want to go
I'm going
first?
to go first. Yeah, I'm going to kick it
Okay.
up.
All right, I will turn things over to Jeff.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's great to be back myself. I am really loving this series. We've had so much fun. We started in August, I think it was, doing the Amsterdam shows, and we've been doing them monthly. And it's just been a blast. And I've been looking forward to this one because I get to hand over the demo responsibilities to somebody else this time. So I get to sit and watch and enjoy with the rest of you. So I'm looking forward to that. So today we're going to be stepping into the colorful world of fluid art. Some folks know it as paint pouring. And we're going to start out with a presentation. I got some fun facts for you, things that you might not even know about pouring, even if you've been involved in it for a while. And then, of course, as always, I'm going to share some of the features of Amsterdam. And then I'm going to turn over to Kanella, and she is going to guide us through a video she made of some different pouring techniques. You're going to love it. They are super fun to watch. I already had a sneak preview. So that'll be exciting. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off here. I'm going to change my screen to the presentation. So let me know when everybody sees that. We looking good? All right, let's kick this off. Oh, that's not how you do it. All right, there we go. Maybe not. There we go. Go with the flow. Pouring with Amsterdam Acrylics. And that's one of Kanella's paintings in the background. Beautiful. All right. So first, what is paint pouring? You heard me say fluid art, and it's known, a lot of folks refer to it that way. I'm looking forward to the fluid art experience that's coming up later this year. I believe it's in April in Dallas. So check information out on that if you haven't seen it before. A great opportunity to learn from some wonderful artists. Paint, if you want to define it literally, it's paint poured or flowed onto a surface rather than applied with a brush. So you're letting the paint do a lot of the work, just the inherent qualities of the material itself. It really emphasizes movement, gravity, the interaction between colors. It's a fascinating process to watch, and the results can be really spectacular. It's really rooted in nearly a century of artistic experimentation, and that's something a lot of folks don't know. A lot of folks think it's just been this thing that's been going on the last 20, 30 years, but really it dates back to the 1930s, and I'm going to share some information with you about that. In the 1930s, and those of you who have seen some of my presentations before may recognize Siqueiros, David Siqueiros. Here he is in his studio. He actually is the father of paint pouring. He discovered while experimenting with a lot of industrial materials, and he was pouring these layers. He wanted to get away from traditional techniques. And this is a painting he did in the 1930s that's at the Museum of Modern Art with those specific techniques. He referred to it as accidental painting, and this is a detail of one of the areas of the painting we just looked at, and you can see the cellular structure very similar to what artists are achieving today in a wide array of results. He wrote a letter to a friend, and I have the quote in the bottom there. When pouring layers of paint of different colors, they infiltrate into each other and produce the most magical fantasies and forms that the human mind can imagine. So he really loved the chance element as of the material just behaving the way it behaved as you intermingled them. A little more on Siqueiros. Siqueiros plays a prominent role not only in North American art in the 20th century, but in acrylics. And I've mentioned him before in some of my previous talks on acrylics. Some of the first acrylics were developed in Mexico by a gentleman named Jose Gutierrez, and here he is pictured in one of his advertisements. He actually collaborated with Siqueiros in the 1930s in New York, and he was put in charge of the Institute of Technology in Mexico as it related to looking at industrial tools and how they can be modified for the use by artists. He is credited with writing one of the first books on acrylic painting. Here's the Spanish cover. You can still get this book on Amazon. I have a copy that's like 40 years old, but it's really a wonderful book. And Siqueiros actually wrote the introduction and forward and collaborated on it with him. And he's got this great quote. I'm going to read the whole quote to you this time. The acrylic medium produced and perfected is a great contribution to 20th century art. For all my work, no other medium could possibly give me the ease of manipulation. There is as much difference between acrylic and other mediums as there is between the burrow and the jet-propelled motor. So you can tell he was a big fan. He actually went as far as getting a hold of some scientists and physicists to study the effects of the pouring paint. And it led to further exploration. This image is actually from the Art and Physics paper published by Emory University. And they came up with something called the Rayleigh-Taylor instability theory. And it's when a lighter and heavier fluid form, they create these irregular results. So that lighter fluid is trying to push through the heavier one. And at the boundaries, you get these dipples and ripples and bubbles. So there's actually a scientific name for what's happening with paint pouring. Marked as one of the earliest intersections of modern science and abstract painting. So, of course, science and art have a long history together, but when we start to get into modern painting in the 20th century, this is really one of the first collaborations. And here you can see another portion of a painting by Siqueiros where he's using the pouring technique. He had a huge influence on North American painters. He had an experimental workshop in New York City in the 1930s. It was really a collective that he was leading. They rejected traditional painting techniques. They were in favor of industrial materials, pouring techniques, as we've been talking about, kind of controlled accidents, as he referred to them, very large scale work sometimes. The experiment directly influenced a whole group of artists who were in New York at the time, including Jackson Pollock. And here you can see a picture of Siqueiros and Pollock together. Other painters like Lee Krasner, wonderful work that she puts out. And here you can see her embracing some of the pouring techniques early on after her interactions with Siqueiros. Of course, we're all probably familiar with Jackson Pollock, Jack the Dripper, right? He began using this pour and drip technique immediately after his experiences with Siqueiros in 1947. He used a thin enamel paint, what was available then, and an industrial type of paints, and you can see them all in their cans here in his studio. I went too fast there. Let me see if I can back it up. He placed the canvases flat on the floor. You can see him standing over it in the other image, but here's a nice detail of him pouring the paint on. I don't recommend smoking next to enamel paints or these things, by the way. And here's one of his paintings, number 31, that's at the Museum of Modern Art also. And just this embrace of the gesture, the movement, the physical engagement with the material and the stuff of the artist. And you can see in here the spirit of that accidental discovery that comes with paint pouring. There's another generation that took up the mantra, if you will. They referred to it as modern acrylic staining. Helen Frankenthaler was one of the leaders of this technique of pouring thin paint onto raw canvas so the paint actually soaked into it and stained it, something we covered in one of our previous talks. The paint actually soaks into the fiber, so there's a molecular bond. It's very different than pouring on the surface and really creates these wonderful soft edges that you can see in that large painting in the detail. There were other artists who continued this, the colored field painters they were referenced to, and it really marked a revolution with acrylic paints. They were one of the first groups in the US to embrace acrylics as we know them today. Artists like Morris Lewis, whose work is pictured in the back, Sam Gilliam, Kenneth Nolan. Here's one of Sam Gilliam's paintings. The technique really characterized the move towards the post-painterly abstraction that came later. Here's one of Kenneth Nolan's paintings, and that transition to acrylics improved the archival durability of the work. So when they started doing these staining techniques, they were using oil thinned out with a solvent onto raw canvas. And ultimately, what's going to happen is that oil paint is going to start to rot the actual canvas itself. So acrylics allowed them to do the staining process and maintain the archival quality of the paintings. Today, a huge resurgence and interest in fluid art and paint pouring. The development of specialized acrylic pouring mediums came about. So there are many different brands that are available out there of pouring mediums that you just add to the paint and hit it. It allows the paint to flow without losing any adhesion or color strength, like mixing it or thinning it with water. And the technique became a lot more accessible. So there were a lot of artists of different levels, everything from professionals to kids and workshop crafts, you name it, a lot of applications for this really fun process. Social media contributed as well. Fluid art gained momentum on Instagram around 2015. It exploded on TikTok, right, during the pandemic and continues to be a really popular subject on that format. If you go to YouTube, there are millions of views. There are over 21,000 different acrylic pouring channels, 2,000 channels and over 200, videos, 21,000 videos, excuse me, and 2,000 different channels. So lots of folks out there embracing it and sharing their knowledge. Some of the innovations that have taken place, there's been a development of some really distinct pouring styles. Probably the most familiar to a lot of folks are the Dutch pour. It really became widely recognized, and there have been a lot of innovations with that technique and others since then, really showing how this process has evolved with artists. The benefits of acrylic pouring, if you've never tried it out before, it's really versatile across a lot of different surfaces. So you can use it on canvas, you can use paper, wood, and ceramics. Being acrylics, it really has the same advantage that acrylics do in general. being a strong paint film and adhering to a lot of different surface materials. Minimal physical effort, of course, depending on how you like to engage with it, right? But the result with some really complex visual experiences can be easily achieved in many of these techniques. It's organic, it's unpredictable, the outcomes are really fun, there's a sense of discovery. You never know sure 100% what you're going to get. It's a cost-effective process compared to many other traditional methods out there. You can spend, as little as much as you want on any technique, but to get started, there's not a huge investment. It's really beginner friendly and accessible too. Some of the entry points for fluid art can be a lot of fun, whether you painted in your life before or there's the first time you're picking up a jar of paint. And then also one of the things that I really love about it, and you will see some of that, the dramatic color. Some really highly customizable color palettes out there that artists are using and exploring. Some of the materials you'll need, and I'll let Kanella go through her list of materials. So this is really just a general list. Of course, you need some acrylic paints in a wide range of colors. Amsterdam is a favorite out there with 102 colors available. Pouring medium is needed and it improves the flow and the blending of the paint, and I'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into the presentation. A pouring surface, so you need something to work on, right? A canvas, paper, tiles, even wood, whatever is reasonable for you or whatever you're looking to work on. Mixing cups, you got to mix that paint and stirs with the pouring medium. So here we can see an example of somebody's studio. You want to have some protective gear, gloves, aprons. This process, like a lot of painting processes, can go farther than the surface you're working on. So protecting yourself in your area is recommended. And then a nice level surface to work on. And you can see here also, I didn't make a note of it, but covering that surface with some kind of paper or plastic or cloth is really recommended too if it's not a dedicated studio space. So let's focus on the pouring mediums. There are different ways that you can approach this. You can purchase a pouring medium. There are several different brands, commercial brands available out there. They're specifically formulated for archival durability, one of the things that makes them distinct. What they're made up of is typically a lot of water, like acrylic paints, acrylic pouring mediums, and other auxiliaries have a lot of water in them. There's an acrylic polymer binder, the same binder that's in acrylic paints itself. Roughly about a third of the composition is that binder. Then also we get into the leveling agents and preservatives and stabilizers. So leveling agents help the paint settle out so you get that nice smooth surface that you see in a lot of the pouring pieces. And then also preservatives and stabilizers are included there to help improve the archival life of the material. There are some DIY options out there too. PVA glues are really popular. The mixture, and this can be experimented with, but a general ratio is about 70% glue to 30% water. And what that does is allows the paint to flow a little bit better and to level out. Floetrol is a real popular latex paint conditioner that you can buy at like Home Depot and other places like that online as well. It's real popular. And then there are some additives that some folks like to use, like silicone oil, excuse me, or alcohol. And they help with the development of cells, so those additive for cells. Silicone and alcohol work in different ways, though. Silicone is less dense than paint. It kind of repels water, and it causes a rise through the paint layers, and they kind of burst open on the surface, and this is what really gives us the cellular structure. Alcohol is a little bit different. It acts as a cellular additive. It helps the paint to form and separate, kind of create separation and texture when mixed into the color. So they have a different result. They can be used together. Recommend some caution with a lot of the silicones out there because they can have some volatile organic compounds in them. The ratios, and these again are really general ratios, worthy of experimentation, but I wanted to give you some idea if you've never painted with this technique before. There are different types of acrylic paints available. So heavy-bodied paints typically are a 1 part paint to 3 to 4 parts medium. Soft body paint like Amsterdam is about 1 part paint to 1 part medium. So you can see the advantage of the soft body paint allows you to have a lot more color in the mix than a heavy body paint. Some of the benefits of using acrylics in general, as well as in this technique, huge advantages. There's greater resistance to moisture after the surface dries. That's one of the things that contributes to its ability to really be put on any surface and also holds up to abuse. Better adhesion, again, allows it to stick on a lot of different surfaces. It really is the strongest adhesive in the paint binder world. Really superior resistance to blistering and cracking. Oil paint, of course, things like gouache are not really well suited as environment ages over time, but acrylic really durable. You're not going to get those kind of cracks in acrylic. Also non-yellowing. It does not yellow like linseed oil does in oil paint. So you get that nice clean color for many, many years. It's alkali resistant. So that means that it resists all the acids in the environment. So it can be used outside or on objects that are going to be placed outside. And there are no harmful solvents needed. Huge benefit to a lot of folks who don't have a dedicated studio space, right? So you don't have to worry about using any harmful solvents in the process. All right, real quickly, before we jump into the demonstration with Kanella, I wanted to share some of the features of the Amsterdam paint itself. Amsterdam standard has a high pigment to binder ratio, so there's lots of color. It's not top tier like our Amsterdam Expert, but it has excellent amount of pigment for the price, and it is the same quality of pigment that's used in the Amsterdam Expert or other professional paints. So it's really good tinting strength and really good color mixing as a result. We also mill this paint. So a lot of medium grade, artist grade paints are only mixed. We still do the fine grind on a triple roll mill, which is similar to what professional artist paints go through. It results in better pigment dispersion and more brilliant and true color. I mentioned the soft body quality of the Amsterdam standard, so a real creamy consistency makes it versatile for a variety of applications and mediums, especially as we talked about with the pouring and fluid art techniques. As I mentioned, the same pigments we use in professional grade paints. We have excellent light fast ratings. As a result, the majority of the colors have 100+ year light fast rating quality. We refer to that as excellent degree of light fastness and archival quality. You're going to find that there are a variety of opaque and transparent colors. So in the 102 color range, you will see colors that are naturally transparent, naturally opaque, gives you the ability to layer colors in a variety of different ways and different combinations. One of the fun things, especially in the fluid art, is we have 23 different specialty colors. These include the reflex colors, those are the phosphorescents, metallics, pearls, those are the interference pigments, and they really can be dramatic when used in the pouring techniques. One thing that distinguishes Amsterdam is we use 100% acrylic resin binder. So there's no fillers put into the binder, no other volatile organic compounds. We refer to those as VOC. So really durable paint film, and one of the things that makes it mix really well with other mediums. I mentioned the alkali resistance, so wall painting, murals, creating a surface that you can wash with soap and water later, really well suited for that. One of the benefits if you are in the classroom, and one of the reasons that Amsterdam is really a preferred acrylic in the classroom, is that our preparation, a proprietary preparation, is virtually odorless. So you don't get that ammonia smell or anything uncomfortable. So really great in shared spaces, or if you're working from home at the kitchen table, you're not going to drive everybody out of the kitchen. All right, I am excited to hand it over to Kanella. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen at this point. So if we got any quick questions that folks want to answer before we jump into the demo, happy to do that on the presentation.
I don't see anything in the chat right now, but if people want to put those in, I'll turn things over to Kanella and we can always hold those for another time.
Oh,
I don't know.
How big of a space would you need?
Well, I'm still going to need to share my screen
Okay.
the video, so you can keep me on there. I hope there was some fun information for folks out there. especially on the history part of it. I always love to dig into the history of materials. It kind of connects you with artists of the past, and I think it gives us a deeper relationship with the materials that we're using as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again then, and Kanella, I'm going to
Yeah.
turn it over to you as your video plays.
Oh, and we do actually have one question, which is how big of a space do you need for acrylic pouring?
Well, when I started out over 7 years ago, I was pouring on my kitchen table, which was like a 4 foot by 4 foot table. And then I moved into a basement and I had one of those Costco plastic tables that was 2 feet by 4 feet. So, I mean, it depends what you're doing, but you could always start off in a really small space. You don't need a studio like this. You just start small and you work your way up, like I did. Like I started on the kitchen table. Actually, first I started on the dining room floor, then I went to the kitchen table, and then I went down to the basement. But you don't need a big space because you could be pouring on little 10 by 10 canvases and have fun with that. And then as you go, you expand and you get bigger.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to play the video. Kanella, if you need me to pause it, just shout out and I will pause it.
Sounds
And I'm looking forward to this.
I mean, we could like see all the questions and we can answer questions as they go along. But I mean, these are just my, oh, there's me. Hello, everybody. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I can talk for half an hour during all of this, but if anyone's got questions while we're going along, I mean, feel
Well, maybe
free.
describe what we're looking at here.
Yeah,
We
so
the paints
those
there
are
in the cups, and you've got your an elevated kind of system there for the canvas.
Yeah, those are my furniture levelers, which I get off of Amazon. Um, they're perfect because they twist at the bottom. Actually, I'm going to get one. Hold on. They're right here.
Oh, they can't see it though. They can only see the video. I can pause it and maybe go
Can't
back a
they see me
little.
though? Can't they see me in the video?
I don't think so. Can they see her?
They
Can you
can
guys
see
see
your
me?
hands, but they can't
Oh, they
see.
can't see.
I
Oh,
can't
I
see you.
see
Yeah,
what
I
you're
just see the
saying. You can
video.
see my actual video, but you can't see me live with
Right,
the.
right.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so they are furniture levelers. They are in my you get them off Amazon. You get like a 4 pack. And the good thing about them is the bottom of them twist. So you can I use a push pin to like
There you
see,
go.
I use push pins under there and you just tack them up under the canvas and then you use this leveler that you're about to see in 2 seconds. And it is perfect for leveling out your canvas because all you got to do is twist the little bottoms of these little furniture levelers, and it is perfect. You always have a level canvas, and I cannot tell you how important it is to have a level canvas because you could do the most beautiful blowout or ring pour or any kind of, painting, and then you come back 6 hours later and it's all slid to one side and you're like, what happened? And it's because your canvas wasn't level. So the canvas being level is so important. And I know some of you pour on your kitchen tables and you can't leave that painting there on the kitchen table for the next 3 days for it to dry. So if you do have to move your painting after you're done doing your pour, wherever its final resting place is, where you're going to let it sit and dry for 2, 3 days, make sure that that surface is level first. So take your canvas without paint on it and go put it on that shelf or wherever it is you're going to put it and make sure it's level there and then bring it back to your table, do your painting and then move it back to your shelf because you know it's level there. So if you are going to move it, make sure its final resting place where you're going to put it for a couple of days to dry is level. So that's super important because trust me, when I tell you, I've had done many paintings where I come back and it is all slid off, or if the canvas wasn't tight, and it was a little droopy. Sometimes you get some bad canvases from Michael's or wherever it is you buy your canvases from, but sometimes they're not very tight. You can spray them a little bit with water in the back and they tighten up like a drum. So definitely make sure your canvas is level. That's one
Stop
main.
the video there. So yeah, it was going through the different colors. I thought maybe you'd want to comment on some of the colors you're using and what's in the cups.
Okay, yep. So you can see I've used all Amsterdam paints there, and then I have one gold metallic in there.
Right.
And for all of you who have watched me on YouTube, and for those of you who have no idea who I am and never watched me before, I have a instructional video on YouTube, video number 434. If you check out that video, it is a full tutorial on how I mix my paints for the blowout technique, or Dutch pour as we call it as well, using water and the flood Floetrol. So those paints in those cups all have water and Floetrol in them to make them a very thin consistency, because if you have thick paints, your hair dryer or blow dryer is not going to be moving any of that paint on that canvas. So you must thin out your paints for a blowout. Now, clearly, I'm about to do a ring pour here. So for ring pours, your paint should be a thicker consistency, but I simply used my blowout ratios for this in these cups, and it worked out pretty good for me. But you could do it a little bit thicker if you wanted to do a ring pour. The demo video's frozen, someone says. No, it's running.
Yeah, we're pausing it occasionally just to let
Yeah.
Kanella explain what she's doing. So if you're noticing that it's not moving, it's because we paused it.
Perfect. So this ring pour, wait till you see the end results. Even I was surprised. So I just have as you can see, a big measuring cup there, and I'm about to start just layering the colors into the cup. So the first color you put in, which is the turquoise you see, is obviously going to be the last color that is going to come out when I am pouring everything out of that cup. So if your favorite color is purple, make sure purple is the first color you put down there, because then it's going to be the last color that pops out. Now, this is a process. This is going to take a while. Layering all the colors. Does anyone have any questions? Because I don't know if I can keep talking.
I have a
Um,
question, Canella. As you're pouring those in, it seems like you're staying to the one side. Is that essential or
Yes, so you could do it in two different ways. I like to pour it along the side of the cup. That way it doesn't sink to the bottom and kind of mess with the purple and the turquoise. It kind of, when you pour it down the side, it kind of does a layer on top, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to layer the colors. Some people will just pour from up high and let it sink, and it kind of mixes all the colors together. But my goal here is to layer the colors. So I kind of do it down the side so it flows, slowly down. And as you can see, creates a layer on top as opposed to it sinking right down in the middle.
got it? Looks like you're on your last color. I'm amazed at how much good color you still have, even after mixing with the mediums. I love that gold.
Oh, very vibrant. Yeah. Someone says when you put the colors in the cup, don't stir it at all. No, no, no. If you stir that, you're going to end up with probably a muddy color that you don't want to see. So you definitely don't want to stir that up. You're just going to layer all the colors in, and then you're going to start pouring it out. How do I decide what order to layer the cup in? So you can see I started with turquoise, and then I have purple. I put the gold because it's metallic. I kind of put that in the middle. And then you can see I have the sky blue light and then the turquoise green. So I didn't put those two side by side because they are similar in color. So you want to try and keep similar colors apart from each other. So let's say I had like a phthalo blue and another dark blue, like greenish blue. You want to keep those separate. You want to separate them with another color. Don't put the same colors of shade side by side. You want to separate it with some vibrant other random color.
My favorite part here.
Oh yeah. That gold, I tell you, I don't know what happened there. So, someone says, apologies if I missed this. Are the cup paints being used straight out of the bottles? They've been mixed with water and Floetrol. So you can see here, as I'm doing this and I'm recording myself, I was thinking in my mind, oh my gosh, where did all this gold come from? And where are all the other colors? I was like, this is going to be the worst painting ever. But I tell you, this is the fun thing about acrylic pouring. You never know what the outcome is going to be. It's going to surprise you, the ending of this, because I thought I've ruined this. It's all gold. Where's all my beautiful turquoise? Where's the lime green? You can't even see it. So I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out. But, and by the way, I used way too much paint for this. You do not need that much paint for a ring pour. But these were leftover colors that I had from previous pours. So I thought, what the heck? Throw it all in a cup and let's see what happens. So you can see here, I'm kind of going in different directions. First, I'm turning clockwise, then I'm going a little counterclockwise. I'm kind of twisting my hand a little bit. When you do that, you kind of change the design. As you can see, the rings are changing a little bit. And when you're done, you're about to see me put my other hand underneath to catch that drip. You don't want a drip coming out of the cup and then it dripping somewhere along the canvas where those beautiful rings are. You see, you grab it and you move it away. Don't let that last little drip that comes out of that, fall anywhere on the painting because it's going to show and it's going to ruin the rest of the rings. How long will paint last after you mix it with water and Floetrol? So I put all my paints in my Lolivefe bottles, and they have been sitting in those bottles, some of them for 6 years, 7 years, and they still are perfectly fine as long as you have an airtight bottle to put them in. The paints that I have here that I've been using for years, it's still perfectly fine. I do not have to thin them more with water. I don't have to do anything with them. I just give them a good shake and I'm ready to use them. So as long as your container, your bottle is airtight, you are good. You can keep them in there for a long time. Now, look at this. Look at all the paint.
Sure.
Now, a lot of people will see that and be like, oh, what a waste of paint. Don't worry. I literally scooped that all up and put it in a cup and made a new color, and I'll use it for something else down the road. So you don't necessarily have to waste paint. You can scoop all that up with a little spatula or little, something and put it in a cup and make yourself a new color. But look, where's the gold? See? It's gone. And here's the purple and the blue. I still don't know what happened to the lime green though. The green is gone, but when I tell you I was super surprised with how this turned out because all I saw was gold at first. And I was like, oh, this is not going to work out. So you can see me tilting. So the key to tilting is you have to go very slow. And that is so not my forte. I'm all about go, go, go and do it as fast as I can. I have zero patience, but you have to have patience with a ring pour. So you could see I started in one corner, brought it back to the center, then I picked another corner, and then you got to bring it back to the center. Always bring it back to the center after you've gone in one direction. So you can see here, I'm going nice and slow. You can see all my edges are covered. And if you over tilt, then that's a problem. So you have to know when to stop too. Like don't overdo it because you can't take it back once you've done it. So I always say that to all my students. Don't fidget with it, don't mess with it, don't overdo it because once you've gone past that point, there's no return. You can't go back. So there you go. No gold at all. I mean, I don't know what happened to it, but I'm glad it ended up like that and most of that gold disappeared. So the green is,
Adding in the highlights and the edges, it's giving it that extra dimension. I love it.
yeah, it's so 3D like.
Mesmerizing.
Yeah. And I don't do ring pours often, but I thought, you know what? Let's have some fun with this. And it dried perfectly. It dried so well. And I was really surprised that all the gold disappeared, which I was happy with. But you can see, because I'll show you guys in a minute, I always end up turning the lights off and putting the flash on my camera so that you can see the shimmer from the metallic paints that I use, which you'll see in one of the videos coming up. But the gold definitely shimmers in these paintings when you put a light to it.
Beautiful.
So I do actually have a couple of other questions.
Mhm.
So the first is, as you sort of layer up the paint, do you make the top layers in the cup thinner than the bottom layers? Is that like an intentional
The
choice?
preference. Nope.
Okay.
Total preference. You can put a lot or as little. as much or as little as you want. But again, if you put too much of one color, you might end up what you just saw there and have a lot of gold. I didn't think I put a lot of gold in there, but clearly I did. But yeah, you could do really, really thin layers and like run through your, like I had what, 5, 6 cups. You could go through those cups 5, 6 times if you're doing little bit, little layer, or you can put a big layer and then only do run through that, order of cups 2 times. So it's really a preference.
We do also have a couple questions about the um sorry, oh yeah. Have you ever had the Floetrol go bad at all? Or because someone once mentioned that they sort of smelled it going off.
Yeah, so Floetrol can go bad. I mean, they say you should store it in a cool, dark place. Don't put it in the sunlight or anything like that. But I personally, 7 years, I've never had a bad batch of Floetrol, but there are also knockoffs out there in the web, on Amazon and stuff like that. People try and sell Floetrol, and you'll know it's not good because it's got a rotten egg smell. So that's how you know your Floetrol is no good. If it's got like a sulfur kind of rotten egg smell, then it's no good. But again, I've been 7 years and I've never had and I have bottles, jugs of Floetrol that I've had for 6, 7, 8 months, because I buy them in bulk and I've never had an issue.
We do have another question about this, which is if some of the colors are going to just vanish anyway, just from the process of doing the painting, why do you use as many colors as you do? Why don't you use like just two or three?
Because you just never know what you're gonna get. That's why. If you only use two, then all you're gonna see is two. But if you throw 5, 6 colors in there, it's a surprise. It's like a surprise bag. You don't know what's gonna come out of it. You might get a bunch of colors, or you might only see the purple and blue, like you saw right here in this video. But the more if you limit the colors, then you're really not gonna get a surprise because you kind of know what to expect if you're only using 2 colors. But I suggest using 4, 5, 6 colors and see what happens.
Oh, we do also have another question just about the mediums that you're using. Do you need to use something like Floetrol, or could you just mix with water and get the same results?
You could mix with water, and with the Amsterdam paints, because they're so highly pigmented and they're great with binders, right, Jeff? Like you could put
Yeah.
just water in it. I like to use Floetrol because you're actually using less paint. So I can save some paint by using Floetrol. If I use just paint and water, my ratios would have a lot more paint in it for the water as opposed to when I do paint, water, and Floetrol, I use less paint. So you can save some paint by not by using Floetrol. You still can use just paint, your Amsterdam paint and water, but it depends on the paint brand you're using. If you're using a lower end brand of paint, you really can't do water because the binders aren't that great and then it's no good. So, but Amsterdam paint, you can definitely do just paint and water. But I like Floetrol because it's less expensive and you don't have to use that much paint and your paint lasts longer.
Yeah, and I can add into that too, whether you're using Floetrol or a commercial branded one like a Golden or a Liquitex or an Amsterdam, they are going to improve the overall flow of the paint compared to water. They're going to give you that leveling effect. It's going to be nice and even. Sometimes water bubbles up, and whatever the surface you're working on, those characteristics can become more evident. And like you're saying, just the economy of it. Um, Water too mixes, you don't get the clear edges sometimes. It's more of a stain, like when we were looking at Helen Frankenthaler's compared to the fluid response. All right, I'm going to get started again. I think it's going to merge right into the next one.
I go to the next one. So this one here, I use some pearl paint. So I'm doing a black base here for a blowout. So there's the dried results. You see that? It
Yeah,
dried perfectly fine. My canvas was level, so it didn't shift off or do anything like that. So it worked out really well. And again, I'm surprised all the gold just disappeared, which I was totally fine with because I love the blue and the purple. Lime green, don't know what happened to that, but there you have it. Those are the dried results.
well,
Someone asked, is the Floetrol from Australia supposed to produce better cells? You can be the judge of that because I did a side-by-side comparison with three different Floetrolls. That's video number 345 on my YouTube channel, where I did three different paintings using the American Floetrol, the Australian Floetrol, and Owatrol Floetrol, which is out in Europe there. So you can check that video out, 345, and you could see, I mean, it did kind of get better cells, but some people don't like cells, so it's a preference. All right, so in this painting, I'm doing black as the base because I am using some of the pearl paints from Amsterdam. And the pearl paints show best when you're using a dark base, correct, Jeff?
Absolutely, absolutely. They really
Right.
shine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm using some, I think I'm using pearl white, was it? And I'm also using some of the new colors. When did these new colors come out, Jeff? Because I love these new
2 years
colors.
now.
Years?
Yeah, yeah.
Where have I been? I
So
just got them.
Yeah, early 2024 is when they got kicked out.
What? Well, I think I've had them for like a little bit, but I mean, I just got my hands on these. So the pearl lilac, then you have the blush, bluish gray light was a new one that I just got, ultramarine light, turquoise green light. I mean, those are some really nice new colors that I never had in my palette until like maybe, I don't know, 6, 8 months ago. So I'm loving these colors. So I thought I'd do the dark base with these light pastel-y colors. And we'll see what happens here. Let's see. Do you use cell activator in your ring port? No, I did not use any cell activator. The term cell activator is primarily used only in the bloom technique. A lot of people get that confused. So cell activator is basically just for the bloom technique. They use that for making all the beautiful cells in the blooms. I'm talking about the hair dryer. Everybody wants to know about the hair dryer. Speaking of the hair dryer, when you're doing blowouts, a lot of people say, well, that hair dryer doesn't have a cold shot button. You don't need cold air coming out of your hair dryer in order to do this technique. It's a preference. Some people say you do. I've been doing it for 7 years and I have never, ever, ever used a hair dryer with the cold button. So my hair dryer only blows hot air and I've never used cold. So it is not necessary. A lot of people ask me this tool here. Oh, I have a paint boogie in there. If you're putting down your base and you see a little chunk of dried paint, you gotta get that off. See, there it is. You gotta get that off the canvas because if it dries, you will see that little lump in your on your canvas when your painting dries. So if you can catch it and you can see it, get it out while it's still wet because once it dries, you'll have a little bump in your surface on your canvas. And then this lovely spatula that everyone asks about is actually for omelets. It's actually for making omelets. It's an omelet turning spatula. Get it off Amazon. It is the large size and it is the greatest thing for spreading paint for me. Very easy and smooth. So you get it off Amazon and it's an omelet turning spatula. All right. Any other questions?
we do have a question. I don't know if you've mentioned this before, but do you use Floetrol versus glue wall? Do you have any opinions on that?
I have never used glue. From the day I started, I always used Floetrol. So unfortunately, I cannot comment on glue because I've never myself tried it. I don't know, Jeff, if you have any like tips about that, but I've never used glue, not for any of my pouring techniques that I've done in my art career. I've never used glue. So unfortunately, that I cannot answer.
Yeah, I've never used it myself
I
either.
can't
I've
compare.
always used the commercial pouring mediums for the ones I've done.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
oh, and then actually sort of like going off of that, do you pre-mix your paints before you put them in the bottles? Like, do you mix them in cups and then put them in the little squeeze bottles you have?
That is a preference. I actually put them straight into the squeeze bottles. I have a steady hand. I mean, the top of the bottles is a very small hole. So if you can put them in the bottle straight from, your Amsterdam tube paint, then do it that way, because then you're not wasting cups and all of that. But some people can't do that. Some people don't have a steady hand, or, they prefer to put it in a cup and then pour it in the bottle. You can do either or, doesn't matter. I usually fill up the bottle with my ratio of Floetrol. Then I will put the Amsterdam paint in it. I give it a shake, then take the cap back off, put the water, and then give it a shake, and you're good to go. But I do them straight into the bottle because I don't want to be wasting stir sticks or cups to pre-mix in a cup first and then just simply pour it into the bottle. So it goes straight into the bottle for me.
Um, then we do also have a question about, first of all, for the canvas, is there, what do you have underneath it that lets you sort of spin it around? Do you have just like like Lazy Susan or
Oh,
what?
good question. So in these videos, you don't actually see the spinners that I use if I'm doing a bloom and spinning stuff out. But it is a Lazy Susan. I do make them. I do make and sell them. I make them with my laser machine. And so it is a Lazy Susan. And I have two varieties, a small and a large. And I put a silicone mat over it because that helps the canvas. It prevents the canvas from sliding off when you're spinning it around and around. But yes, if you want to spin your art, then I use a Lazy Susan. And like I said, I make them myself, and it does have a little Lazy Susan like metal swivel underneath that I attach to the wood. And yeah, I make them.
I paused it here because you could tell us what's going on in this step.
Ah, yes. So here I am popping the air bubbles. So what happens if you put down your base paint and you put your paints down and you forget to pop those air bubbles, my friends? I tell you, if you forget to pop those, once you are done with your blowout and you think, oh, this is so pretty, it looks great, and then eventually those bubbles will come to the surface and they will pop. They will eventually come out and pop. And what happens is if they come up to the top and pop, what you'll see, so in this case, I have a black base, you are going to see teeny tiny little pinhole-like circles or bubbles all over your painting. So you need to pop those bubbles because they will eventually pop after you've done your blowout. And whatever color your base is, in this case black, or if you're doing white or whatever, it will show those little circles on your painting. You'll get a ton of them, so you want to make sure you pop your bubbles. So you saw I popped the bubbles after I put the black layer down, and you're going to see again that I will pop the bubbles on the colored paint that I'm putting down now. So you have to remember to pop the bubbles, and it's just a culinary torch. It could be any culinary torch. You could buy a cheap one for $5 off Amazon, or you can get fancy and buy one for like 20 bucks. But you just need a culinary torch with some butane in it, and that's it. And the key is do not let the fire sit in one spot for, any period of time. You want your hand to consistently keep moving side to side and just skim across the top of your painting, because if you go too slow or you stop in one spot, you will burn the paint. So you just need to keep going quick all the way across.
Oh
And
yeah.
here you're
And
layering the colors one over the
oh
other.
yeah.
Yeah, so I layer one on top of the other because if you take your paint and you do like, let's say, a squiggly line, what happens is when I go to blow it out, if I did a squiggle and the squiggle went into the black base, for example, and I try and blow that out, what's going to happen is the black is going to mix with, let's say, this purple I do, and you're going to end up with a muddy color. So you don't want to do multiple squiggly lines everywhere, because then your base paint, whatever color that may be, black, white, whatever, it's going to mix with the nice, beautiful colors you're putting on the canvas. And in this case, because I'm using black, it will turn very muddy and just it'll turn like to a gray mud. And you don't want that. You want to keep the colors as bold and as crisp as possible by not mixing it with the base color. Can I use a heat gun instead of a torch? No, I do not recommend a heat gun. A heat gun is extremely hot. I know fire is extremely hot too, but with the heat gun, it actually blows hot air. So you see here, I'm going really, really, really quickly along the surface. My hand does not stop. It's very quick right across the top, and that's it. With a heat gun, it actually blows hot air like the hair dryer does. So you don't want a hot heat gun blowing on your paint because A, it will move your paint, and B, it will burn your paint. So I don't recommend a heat gun. And a heat gun is way more expensive than a torch anyway, so you should just buy a torch. It's much cheaper.
We had the same question used for both the base layer, but also probably for the top coats of paint that you're using. Do you work out how much paint you'll use for a blowout, and that includes sort of the base layer of black? Or is this just sort of a like, do you do calculations, or do you just kind of know by now?
So I have never calculated. So I get this question a lot. People ask me, well, I'm doing a 20 by 20 inch canvas. How much base paint do I need? And my answer is always, I don't know, because I've never actually measured how much goes on the canvas. Now, what I do is I basically just, you want to put a very thin layer on top of the canvas. However, if you can see through that layer and see the actual canvas, then you haven't put enough. Okay. And is there a question of can you put too much? Yes. If you put too much, then that's also not very good because after you do your blowout, your base paint will just swallow everything up. So you just basically want a thin layer. And as you saw at the beginning of the video, I basically did an outline with my bottle of black, and then I put a big dollop of paint in the center, and then I spread it out with a spatula. The key is at the end, when you are done spreading that base paint, you should not be able to see any part of the canvas. If you can, then just take a little bit of paint and add it to that little bare spot there. But you don't want too much either. But I honestly have never measured how much paint I need. The rule of thumb is if you're making especially a custom color, which I've been doing lately in my YouTube videos, always make more than you think you need. Because if you make a custom color for a base paint and you don't have enough, you're in big trouble because you cannot make that color again if it's a special, color that you made up by mixing multiple colors together. So I just use old Tropicana juice bottles, cranberry juice bottles, and I fill those up with black and white base and I use them as I go along. That way I don't have to continuously make a new base paint every time I want to do a painting. Because let's face it, when you come down or wherever you are in your studio and you want to paint, the last thing you want to do is, I got to make base paint. So I make these big jugs of them and I keep them stored here under my table and I come down and it's ready to go.
All right. Here we go.
Oh, the blowout. So when you are doing the blowout, again, you don't need the cold air. Now you can see how slow I'm going. You cannot go fast with this technique. If you go too fast, you will just mess it all up. The point of going nice and slow is you're giving the paint a chance to kind of mix together with all the layers that I put down. It gives them a chance. You can see the paint rippling as I'm going along. If you go too fast, you're just basically just going to skim the top layer and you're not going to give the paints, there's six layers of paints there. You're not going to give them a chance to kind of mix and intertwine with each other if you are going too fast. So the key is you have to be very slow with your blowout and the angle of the hair dryer. You can see I kind of have it at I don't know, almost a 90 degree, but not quite. If you were at a 40, I'm so bad at math, but if you're at a 45-degree angle, that wouldn't be good because then you're basically skimming the top of the base, the top of the layer of paint, and that's not going to do anything for you. So a lot of people ask me like, oh, do you do like Zoom classes? And it's impossible to teach this sometimes because you really have to see the angle and the speed and all of that up close to be able to really get a feel for how it works. But there you go. That's the final result. And oh, this is important. I show this in every video. You must scrape those drips. See all those little paint drips and you think, "Oh, that's not a big deal." It is a big deal because those paint drips will continue to drip down the side of your canvas, which will then pull the paint from the top of your canvas and continue to pull it down off the edges. And if it continues to do that, then it's going to kind of mess with the composition and the final piece on the top of the canvas. So you want to scrape all four sides of the canvas and then like 5-10 minutes later, come back to it because you'll have some new drips. Scrape those drips as well, and you'll see there won't be any more drips after that. But the drips are very, very important to scrape because if you don't, the paint is just going to continue to pull. See, here we have the flash on, and you can see some of the shimmer in there because I have the pearl. There's the pearl in there. Wait till you see the next painting in this little series because I'm using the new metallic paints from Amsterdam. Whoa. There's the final
There it is.
result.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful effect.
The little caterpillar cells. Now, paints always dry darker too. They're always so nice and vibrant when they're wet, and they do dry darker. But don't fear because when my paintings are dry, I put a top coat of resin on them, and that resin just brings it back to life. Oh, here's a question for you, Jeff. What's the difference between oxide black and lamp black and Mars black? I've
Great
never used
question.
any of them other than oxide black. So I've never used lamp black or Mars black. I just always go to oxide black.
Lamp black is a fun black. It actually is, the hint is in the name. It's a soot, makes up the pigment. So you burn an oil or a gaseous compound and it creates soot, and that soot is scraped off and used as the pigment. What were the other ones? Mars black?
And lamp black.
Yeah, so Mars black, lamp black. Lamp black is the soot. Mars black is actually a mineral, or what we call a inorganic pigment. It's named after Mars, the god of war, and its color index number is PBK11. It's used in a lot of different artist paints. It's a nice warm black, really fun to use, really durable color. I like it a lot. It's made with synthetic iron oxide. And then so we had Mars black, lamp black. Was there another one? Oxide black?
Oxide black, yeah.
So oxide black is similar to the mineral inorganic version we just talked about with the Mars black. Oxide black, sometimes called Mars black. It is made it's really kind of an iron oxide pigment as well. It's slightly different in its temperature. I always think of oxide black as being kind of a nice neutral black. Mars black is a little warmer. Ivory black can be either warm or cool. But they all come from different sources and have some different working properties as a result. Those inorganic pigments, those mineral-based pigments, sometimes they'll have a little better separation. The lamp black will have a little smoother blending. The other black is ivory black. Historically was made from ivory. Now it's made from bovine bone or cattle bone. So that's something to keep in mind if you're trying to stay vegan. Ivory black is a real popular black too. Great question.
Yeah, I had no idea, but I always just gravitate to the oxide black. Here I am again spreading with my fabulous spatula and popping the bubbles. See, gotta pop the bubbles. So someone asked, is the base paint and the color the same consistency? Absolutely. So you have to make sure that all your colors are the same consistency. And I'm not just talking about all your Amsterdam paints. Let's say you're using some Amsterdam and a different brand like Golden or your TriArts, or gosh, there's so many brands out there. They all have to be the same consistency, which is something I show you in video 434 on my YouTube channel. I have various paint brands and they're all different consistencies. So different ratios, sorry, not different consistencies, different ratios. So for the ratios that I would use for my Amsterdam paints would be completely different for my TriArt, or if you're using Artist Loft or Liquitex Basics. They are different because each paint brand is different. Amsterdam is a higher quality paint, so the ratios are different, but they all must be the same consistency. What happens if you are trying to do a blowout, as you see here, and your, golden paint is thicker than your Amsterdam paint, then what's going to happen is as you're putting on these beautiful lines of paint, your heavier, thicker paint is going to sink to the bottom. So if you find your paint is sinking, it's because they're not the right consistency with the rest of your paints. So that also includes your base paint. Your base paint has to be the same consistency. So if you're using Amsterdam as a base paint, which is what I only use as a base paint is Amsterdam, then the ratios I make for that base paint are going to be the same ratios I use to do the colored paints as well. So consistency is key and they all have to be the same. It doesn't matter what brand you're using, they have to be the same. One way to figure out if your consistencies are the same for different paint brands is you can do a drip test. So you just get a piece of wax paper or any kind of paper and you put a little dollop, pea-sized amount of your Amsterdam paint and one of your golden paint and pick up that paper and let it drip down. And if you see that the golden paint is dripping a lot slower down that wax paper than your Amsterdam paint, then that means it's too thick. So you need to add a little water to it. So once you put your little blobs of paint on there and you pick up that paper and they're all pretty much flowing down that paper at the same time, then your consistencies are pretty much the same. So consistency is key. They all have to be the same thinness, if that makes sense. Okay, let me talk about these colors here. So I'm using the metallic purple, the metallic blue, and then I have two pearls in there. I've got pearl violet and the pearl blue. And when I tell you this was my absolute favorite painting, because again, I said when the paints dry, they always dry darker. And these are really, really rich, vibrant paints. And I thought, oh, when this dries, it's going to be darker, but it's fine. I'll resin it and the colors will pop. When I tell you this painting dried and it dried so vibrant and bright, even I was surprised. And it's literally sitting right here by my leg at the table here. And the shimmer in it is insane because there's the metallic purple and the metallic blue. And then I've got both pearls in there. And this thing shimmers like crazy in the light. This was my favorite painting. Like, I mean, look how rich and vibrant those colors are. I loved it. This was my favorite.
The metallics really are magical. The
Oh,
traditional, but these new metallic colors are fantastic.
are these in the 500 mil, Jeff?
Not yet.
Not yet. I must add to my paint wall 500 mils. But yes, I love the new metallics. Are you guys going to come out with more colors or is it just those five or six that you guys have?
Well, the 102 that these new metallics and then the pastel colors that you showed earlier, those were introduced in 2024. This is the 50th anniversary of Amsterdam this year, so there will be some new colors that come out this year. I don't know if there's going to be any new metallics though.
Oh, new
For a
colors
while.
though. That's exciting. Gonna have to get my hands on those. There you go. See, I'm scraping the drips. You have to scrape those drips. But let's look at the close-up. Like, I mean, look at the cells. Come on, Kanella, let's see the close-up. All right, there we go. Look at the cells. Now, I did kind of see a question is how do you get the cells? When you mix metallics in there with your regular paints, the metallics actually help create a lot of the cells. The Floetrol does as well, but adding metallic paints to your lineup there also really, really helps with the cells. And I try to alternate the metallics with a regular color. So if I'm using phthalo blue, I'm going to put a metallic next to it. And then the next color will be a non-metallic, and then a metallic, and then a non-metallic. So I try to alternate the metallics with the non-metallics. It gives them a better chance to blend when you're blowing it out.
Yeah, the metallic paints have a specialty pigment. It's a type of mica that's oxidized, and it creates kind of a mirror effect in the way it captures light, but it also has a different density. So I can see where it would contribute to
Yeah,
the increase in the
absolutely.
cells. Yeah.
Definitely helps with the cells. And here's with the flash on, and the shimmer in this, I tell you, I think there's a dried result at the end of this. I think I'm pretty sure I put this dried result at the end. You'll see it. But this, I cannot believe how this one turned out. It turned out so vibrant and dried so vibrant. And I actually left the paint on the table to dry. You see the little paint, we call those paint skins. So you can either scoop it up in a cup and use it for something else and make a new color, or you can let those paint skins dry. And then what I do is I peel them off the table and it's so shimmery and metallic. And then you can use those to make other things. You can make jewelry with it. You can make keychains with it. There's all kinds of things. You can see that right there on the table that I let all those dry and then you just peel them right off. And you can use them to do other artistic things with it. So never throw away or scrape and chuck the paint that's on your table because you could definitely use it for something else. But look at that. That was my favorite piece.
Yeah,
Oh,
paint
look,
skins
there's
are
the
fun.
dry
Oh, nice.
result. You see? Look how it's just so vibrant still. I thought it was going to dry so much darker. And that doesn't even have a coat of resin on it yet. So wait till it gets a coat of resin and it's really going to pop. Look at that. I was really impressed
Folks
with that.
talk about the pearls like they look white, but as they dry, they become more clear, more transparent and translucent, and it's really fantastic on the black.
Yeah, I actually did a painting where I did just pearls and the whole painting looked white and you didn't get to see what it actually looked like until it was fully dry. And that's when you saw where all the colors were. So that's the fun part about pearls is you never know what you're going to get because they all look white, but you have to wait for it to dry to see what the colors look like.
Now everybody's looking at my mug.
Ah, better yours than
Um, and
mine.
I was just going to say, we do have one other question for Kanella. If you want, I can put you in the center,
Sure.
just while you answer these questions.
Oh,
What
look.
about the role of the canvas in in these techniques? Like, do you find that you use like a finer grade of canvas, or do you just kind of or do you prime the canvases more,
No, I
like in terms
don't
of the
prime.
surface?
No, I don't prime any of my canvases because they're already primed with gesso when you buy them, most of them. I get my canvases from Michaels, although I should try some of these Opus canvases you guys
Got to
have.
try the Opus canvases.
Yeah, I definitely have to try those. I'm gonna probably order a couple of those and give those a whirl. But um, as a beginner, here's a question I get a lot is, oh, I did a painting and it didn't work out. And I say, oh, well, what materials did you use? And they said, I got dollar store canvases and dollar store paints. You're not going to get good results usually some if you're using lower quality products. So I suggest you just get some level one canvases, and you could get great results as a beginner using just your level entry canvases. I use the gallery wrapped canvases, level three, but Bonnie, I think I'm going to start ordering some Opus canvases there and see how those work out.
Yeah, so I was going to say the nice thing is a lot of the Opus canvases come pre-primed as well. So it's already a pretty smooth surface for you to work on, and you don't need to worry about putting a layer of gesso on.
Right.
I believe we
Just for
do.
fun.
Oh, yeah. For the final layer, what kind of resin do you use, and sort of what resin pouring techniques do you use?
Yep. So I have exclusively only been using Krystal Resin. It is a Canadian company, so I like to support the Canadian companies when I can. It's Krystal Resin with a K. And I've used other resins in the past, but for the last 6 years, it's been Krystal Resin. And they do ship to the US as well for those of you who are watching from the US, just to the US and Canada. But Krystal Resin is my go-to resin that I use. And if you want to learn how to apply the resin, check out video number 429 on my YouTube channel. Full tutorial on how to use and top coat your pieces with resin.
I will go ahead and put that in the chat. Oh, and do you have available any of the scooped up colors that you've mixed together?
Um, no, I use them all in one of my recent videos. I try and like get rid of them when I can, but I do not currently have any scooped up colors at the moment.
Yeah, so for the scooped up colors, you just try and incorporate them fairly quickly. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
the thing is you have to, if your table has to be clean, a lot of the times my table isn't clean. So if you do scoop it up and there's like a little bit of, I like to call them paint boogies, you should strain it with a strainer because you don't want any of those like dried pieces of paint in this new color that you've made up. So if you are going to scrape paint up off your table and there is a chance that there might be some dried paint on there, definitely strain it with a strainer, and then just give it a mix and see what new color you come up with. And you can always
The
add to it.
comment I saw about being intimidated by the resins. If you don't want to take that leap, you can use acrylic varnishes or some of the acrylic gloss mediums. They will revitalize the color. It just won't have the drama or the thickness, the density of the resin. But if you're just looking to pop the color back, they can be helpful in that.
Yep. I have used varnish in the past. I've done a liquid varnish where you use a brush, and then I've also used a spray varnish too. But 99.9% of the time, unless a client specifically asks for their painting to be varnished, I will always use resin because I just love the final result, that glass-like surface. Someone asked, what do you protect your table with? So all my tables all have the Lolivefe silicone mats on them, and then I go to Home Depot and it's like a painter's kind of plastic. Painters use it to like, cover couches or whatever when they're painting. It's very, very inexpensive. And I just put that on top of my Lolivefe mats because I like to keep my mats clean and because I do so many videos all the time and I like to have a clean table for you guys when I'm recording. I just put this plastic down. It's a big roll for like 10 bucks from Home Depot and makes for easy cleanup too. So yes, it's a plastic sheet from Home Depot.
Oh, and are you able to show us sort of like a what the bottle of Krystal resin looks like?
I sure can. Let me grab it. So if you are in Canada, they have this new one called Rook resin. So it's from Krystal Resin, and the new name is called Rook. In the US, you can't get that one just yet. Gotta love the tariffs, but can't get that there. But they still do have Krystal Resin. So it's the same stuff. And you can get this in the US. They don't ship anywhere else other than the US and Canada, but it's Krystal Resin, and you get two bottles, part A and part B. Part A is the resin, part B is the hardener, and it is a 1-to-1 ratio. But again, I mean, I've heard a lot of people are like, I'm really afraid to use resin and all that. I mean, give it a try. You'd be surprised how easy it is to use and how fun it is to use as well. Not just for top coating your canvases, but using resin in your, silicone molds and making other things.
Uh, Just seeing if there's any other questions that I missed.
Someone said Rook resin is good. I got it and I live in the US. Yes, you can get it, but if you want the Rook, it's going to ship from Canada and you will get hit with tariffs, unfortunately. So they do have a warehouse in the US where they have the regular resin and there's no, duties or anything like that. But if you want the Rook, you can get it, but it's going to ship from Canada.
Um, yeah, I was also going to say, sort how often do you like experiment with new pouring techniques? Because it seems like there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. Do you sort of stick to what you already know, or do you want to always try something new?
I typically stick to my blowouts. Sometimes I will branch off and do some blooms because it seems to me every time I try something different, everyone's like, "Can you go back to the blowouts? Can you go back to the blowouts?" Okay, we've had enough of this. So I kind of do what my audience prefers to watch because I like to make my audience happy. So I tend to stick to the blowouts and blooms. You did see the ring pour there, which was fun to do. But I've never really done the flip cups or, I mean, there's so many techniques out there right now, and I haven't even probably tried a fraction of them. And people are like, "Oh, do you want to?" And I'm like, "Not really. I have fun what I do with my blowouts." So I tend to stick to my niche. It's what people watch me for, so I like to stick to that niche.
This was a question I was asked a long time ago, and I completely forgot to bring it up. Are there particular colors you find you return to again and again and again, or are you pretty like open
Blue.
about, yeah, blue?
Blue is my favorite color, you all know. But I do like to experiment from time to time and like start using like the lime greens and like my least favorite color is orange. But I have, sometimes I'll start a series where I just do like random colors. Sometimes I ask my viewers, what colors do you want to see? But blue is my go-to. Blue and purple are always my go-to favorite colors to use in my pours because they're also the most popular colors and that's what sells the most. So if you are in the market of selling your artwork, I find that for me, anything with blue and purple sells a lot quicker than anything I've done with red or orange. Blue is the go-to color.
Um, I and I'm just gonna keep checking.
I'm checking the comments to see
Yeah.
if there's anything.
Oh yeah. If you want to talk about the squeeze bottles you use, we don't carry that specific brand, but it seems like those are like a really good
Yep.
uh thing to have if you're doing acrylic pouring. You can talk about.
Yeah, I definitely can talk about them. Let's use this light color. So they're Lolivefe. A lot of people will read it and be like, "No, Kanella, it's love life. That's how you pronounce it." I'm like, "No, no, no. It's Lolivefe." I've been with the owner of Lolivefe for 7 years now, and these are the greatest bottles, airtight. Like I said, when I started painting 7 years ago, I was using Liquitex Basics and Artist Loft beginner paints. And I still have them. They're down here at the bottom. You can't see them, but I still have paint in my Lolivefe bottles. And once in a while, I will pick a color like metallic cobalt blue. And it's perfectly fine. They stay airtight in here, and it comes in four sizes. This is the 150 mil. It's perfect for the blowout technique that I do. You fill it up, and I probably don't have to fill it up again for 6 months. And I paint a lot, so you don't have to fill it that much. Oh, here, I have my pearls. Here we go. There's the bigger version. So this is 150, this is 250, and then there's an even bigger one, and then a teeny tiny one. So there's four different sizes. I don't have the big one on hand, but there's four different sizes, and the 150 is the one I use. It's lolivefe.com, and you can get a discount of 10% if you use code Kanella10. So those are my go-to bottles. A lot of people buy dollar store bottles, and they have that little red tip, like the condiment bottles. Those are not airtight. You're gonna have a problem with those, unfortunately. I learned the hard way, way back. But those.
Um, oh yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say we do actually have a couple questions. These actually both go together. What is the largest size you've painted? And then kind of going off of that, how do you manage the drying and curing of your paintings in terms of spaces? And because I'm assuming you have to dry them face up. So how do you sort of
So the biggest painting I ever did was probably a 24 by 48 inch, I think. I tend not to do really big ones now because shipping them has become a problem. If they're too big, I can't ship them out of Canada, so I tend to stick to smaller canvases. But if someone wants to commission a piece and they live here in the area and they pick it up, then I have done sizes that big. And you just have to let it sit. When I do paintings that large, I let them sit on the table. I do not move them. You cannot move something that big when it's covered in paint. So if you are going to do a painting on a very large canvas, you have to let it sit for at least 3 days to dry. Because moving it would probably be a disaster and you don't want that. So yeah, that's the biggest I've done. Was there a second part to that question? I think there was.
Um, oh, and yeah, it was how do you for the curing basically it's like waiting for your paintings to cure. But I guess actually the other question, this one's more for Jeff.
I was
Um, do you know why Amsterdam paint is no longer available at Michael's? I know that we have it here at Opus, so I think it might be a distributor issue, and I do know we ship all across Canada, so definitely check us out for that.
Yeah,
Um,
I was actually just typing in response to that, but I will
uh,
just share it out loud. So, as the education director, I'm not involved in distribution or sales on that side of it. I'm strictly the have paintbrush will travel guy. So, I can't give you a definitive answer on that, but I am sure that it has something to do with the tariffs and the fact that Amsterdam is distributed through the US in North America. So it could be that they're looking for an alternative to that channel. Um, so we'll just see how things end up, as we move forward in time with those restrictions. But that's my guess. Unfortunately, I don't have a solid answer for you.
There's a good question in the comments there.
Yeah.
Do you only use canvas? What do you think of like a particle board? I use canvas and I use wood boards. Particle board, the problem with some woods is it's very porous, and when you throw a bunch of paint on it, it is going to warp so bad on you. So a particle board is definitely not a good idea. If you are using a type of wood, I use a lot of MDF kind of type of board. You could prime it. You could use gesso to prime it. I actually sometimes just use 2 or 3 layers of acrylic paint to prime it with my Amsterdam paints. But canvas and wood are the two things I primarily pour on. Sometimes I'll do tiles, so if I'm making coasters. But you have to be very careful with wood, because if it is a very porous surface, like if you're using maple or some fancy wood, it will warp on you if you do not treat it properly and put like a couple of layers of gesso or a couple of layers of paint on it. So you have to be very careful with, I would never use particle board personally. It's just going to warp on you.
Do you only use soft body paints for pouring, or would you also use like a heavy body and just sort of dilute it a bit more?
I 90% of my paints, as you can see, are Amsterdam, and I don't really use any heavy body paints. I know Golden has heavy body paints, and I don't really use Golden paints. I stick to Amsterdam. 90% of my paints are Amsterdam. Are there heavy body Amsterdam, Jeff? You've got the
There
soft.
are the Amsterdam Expert is heavy
Oh,
body.
I do
Yeah.
have I do have expert. So you're right, because if you want, is it in video 434? When I do use the expert series paints, I do use less paint in the ratios than I would if I'm just using the regular standard acrylics. So if I am using expert series, I do have one here. Yeah, Indigo by Expert. So Amsterdam Expert, I do use less paint. You don't have to use as much paint if when you're doing your mixing with your ratios if you have heavy body. Someone says, if you're
Oh,
pouring on tile, how do you prepare the tile? I don't. I just buy the ceramic, they're shiny from Home Depot tiles, 4x4 inch tiles, or whatever size tile you want. And I just pour directly on it. I don't sand it. I don't put anything on it. You just pour on it, and that's it.
we do actually have another question about canvases, which is, have you ever reused a canvas with an old pour on it? And if so, how would you basically prep that canvas?
Yep, I sure have. So there have been paintings where I didn't like and I was like, or didn't sell, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to paint over it. So depending on what color is on that canvas, if it's really vibrant, bright colors, I'll probably just paint it black, because black just covers everything. I wouldn't probably do a white base because you're probably going to have to paint it with like 3 or 4 layers of white to cover all of that. So your safer bet is to use a dark color. That's what I would do, and just paint over it with like a dark base. But I've even painted over a painting that had varnish on it, and I painted over. I don't know if that's a no-no, Jeff, but I've done that before. But I just paint it. I get a roller, one of those foam rollers from the dollar store, and I just paint a black or 2 layers of black on it, let it dry, and then I paint over it.
I'm just gonna speak to someone else. I've personally found that if there's any cracking that appears, it's because the acrylic has been layered on very, very, very thick, and like you're getting movement on that bottom layer of acrylic, and that's sort of causing the entire thing to warp. So usually, personally, I tend to go pretty thick when I'm painting. I have like kind of an encaustic, not encaustic, impasto technique. So I tend to sand down my canvases is the other thing, or just like chop away to make it a bit smoother. That might also work for if you've really layered the paint on thickly.
Yeah, that's a
Um, oh, yes. I don't
yeah.
mean to interrupt you.
My no, sorry. So my paintings when I do the blowouts, the paints are very, very thin. So in your case, Bonnie, if you have thick paints, then that's a little bit of a different story. But because my blowouts, the paint is like very thin, I don't have that issue that you would have with your thick paints. There
Oh
was,
yeah, and I guess one last question that I think would be a fun final one to end the session with. Do you have any like clients or customers who will ask for specific colors that you would never use? And do you find yourself sort of liking them more having used them? Or are you still very much like nah, I like the colors that I like?
yep, no, I've had many commissions over the years where the client will specifically request a color or they'll send me a picture of a pillow, like a cushion or something, or their drapes and be like, this is my color of my curtains, let's do this color palette. And I will do whatever the client wants. I had one commission, it was a big one too. And the colors she told me, I was just like, there's no way this is going to look good, but that's what she wanted. And that's what I did. And I was surprised even for myself. I was like, actually, this turned out really good. So I actually love when I get specific colors that are way out of my comfort zone to, requested to try because you just never know what you're going to get. And this happens a lot in the classes I teach when I do my in-person classes. I always tell everybody because they get to do different multiple, canvases. And I say, the first canvas you do, pick your favorite colors. Blue, purple would be mine. But when you do your second attempt, pick colors that you would never go for. Pick the oranges, the reds, pick the colors that you would never pick. And you would be surprised at how many people finish their painting and think, whoa, I would have never done that. This is my new favorite. So you've got to get out of that little comfort zone. And I even say it to myself because again, I always gravitate to blues and purples and, turquoises, but I've definitely done a bunch of color palettes for clients that when they tell me, I'm like, sure, I'll do that. But in my head, I'm like, ooh, I don't know. And then I'm surprised with the end result. So yes, I definitely take on whatever the client wants. So definitely.
All right. We are now at 12:30, so that is all the time that we have today. If anyone does have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us here at Opus. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Or, as I said, I'm going to include links to both Jeff and Kanella's social media. Please go look at them. Kanella has a lot of wonderful videos. I put links to some of them in the chat, but feel free to explore all the wonderful techniques and practice demonstrations that she's got going on there. It's absolutely wonderful, a great introduction to pouring, and also quite a lot more sophisticated techniques that we didn't have time for today. All right, and again, there's going to be a follow-up email that's going to have a 10% off demo code included in that. And have a wonderful Thursday, everybody, wherever you are.
Thank you, everybody. And don't miss next month. I'll be back.
Oh, yes, and I will include that in the follow-up email as well. I don't remember what the name of it
I
is, Jeff.
remember. I
Do you
remember.
remember? Okay, go ahead.
It's going to be the antithesis today, really. So today was very organic and spontaneous and had all that kind of action. Next time, we're going to be looking at hard edge painting techniques. So very controlled and planned. So a lot of masking and stenciling. And going to show some fun layering techniques with both transparent and opaque colors. So it's going to be a fun time.
All right,
Wonderful.
well, I hope to see everyone there. Again, I'll put a link to that in the follow-up email. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.